That night, when father elevated his concubine to the position of principal wife, mother and my elder brother were driven out of the household. I sat alone in the ancestral hall, drinking through the night, laughing until I could laugh no more. At last, all my careful planning had paid off. After returning to the Chu residence to acknowledge my kin, I was cast into a remote courtyard for an entire year. Meanwhile, the false daughter who had been mistakenly taken home since childhood, Chu Yuan, continued to live under my name, basking in luxury and affection. When the emperor decreed a marriage, granting the legitimate daughter of the Chu family to Prince Ping, a crippled man, I was pushed out as a substitute, sent to marry in place of their precious treasure. Chu Yuan, instead, was given to Prince In, the most promising heir to the throne. But later, Prince In rebelled. The empire shook, and the one who ultimately ascended the throne was my husband, Prince Ping. When I was imprisoned in the palace, life and death uncertain, my parents and brother used all their power to rescue Chu Yuan from Prince An's residence and bring her into the harem. My husband, the man I had once swallowed hundreds of bitter herbs to cure, cherished her deeply. Defying morality and law, he conferred upon her the title of noble consort. Meanwhile, I was forgotten in the cold palace, starving, shivering, and abandoned. They, within their warm chambers, basked in tender affection. And I, frail and feverish, vomited blood until death claimed me. Yet when I opened my eyes again, I had returned, to the very day I first entered the Chu household. At the main gate, I saw Chu Yuan nestled in my mother's arms, weeping like pear blossoms in the rain. Mother, don't you want Yuan anymore? Were all those years of love just a lie? My mother, heartbroken, clutched her tightly, sobbing as she turned to rebuke my father. Yuan is my own flesh and blood. How could you drive her away? I don't care what others say, she cried. I only want my Yuan. Mother and daughter embraced, tears flowing endlessly. I, their trueborn child, had become the villain in their story of affection. The scene was painfully familiar. Another lifetime, the same cruel play. Finally, my father, the Minister of State, sighed. Enough. From now on, both of you are daughters of the Chu family. Jinga, come and pay respects to your mother and your sister. I was silent for a long moment before replying. Very well. After returning to the Chu residence, I was once again placed in a secluded courtyard. Mother claimed I needed to study etiquette with the matrons before appearing in public. But I knew the truth, she feared my presence would remind Chu Yuan that she was not truly of Chu blood. How kind of her. So thoughtful in every detail. The next morning, I went to the front hall to pay respects. Chu Yuan was leaning against my mother, acting coy. Ah, elder sister, you're here too. She lifted her chin and a gentle smile bloomed at the corner of her mouth. Mother told the kitchens to stew bird's nest soup. Sister, do come and share it. I followed her gaze to the table, an array of steaming delicacies, bird's nest congee, long tu soup, fudung cakes, steamed milk with sugar, egg soup. My mind flashed back to last night's supper the maid had brought to my small courtyard, a bit of leftover fat from the kitchen and 2 flat, cold steamed buns as hard as stone. Someone who had enjoyed for years the splendor that belonged to me now affected the airs of charity, flaunting her magnanimity. Mother shot me a glance and the smile on her face faded halfway. You're here, then eat with us. She took the bowl of bird's nest congee from Chu Yuan's hand with an affectionate tone and praised, I knew Yuan was the most sensible. Laughter and pleasant chatter filled the room, filial piety on display. I alone was superfluous. The same scene had played out in my previous life, only then it happened half a year after I entered the household. Back then, Chu Yuan had even carefully ladled a bowl of bird's nest congee for me, then accidentally spilled the whole bowl onto me. The scalding broth burned off a layer of skin on my thigh, but I could not remove my clothes to explain. She clutched my arm and sobbed, Mother, please don't blame sister, she didn't mean it. Mother slapped me then, furious, shameless wretch. Go back to your courtyard and don't disgrace the Chu family. Through the searing pain, I saw a gleam of triumph flash in Chu Yuanyuan's eyes, her warning, "Don't even dream of comparing yourself to her." She used that humiliation to prove that no matter how diligently I learned etiquette, no matter how I stitched garments for my parents or tried to integrate into this family, it was all absurd theater. At that thought I stepped back quietly, my face composed and mild. A daughter may return to her kin, and I am deeply grateful. Lately I've been vegetarian to pay respect to the Buddhas, so I won't trouble mother and my sister to serve me. I turned to father. I regret that I haven't been able to care for you both over the years. I would like to go to Hongya Monastery to light a perpetual lamp and pray the Buddhas will bless your official career. At the words official career, his eyes flickered and he spoke in a low voice, "Such filial heart is rare, let Yuanyuan go with her." After offering incense and leaving the temple, Chu Yuanyuan came over as if by habit. Her eyes landed on the jade hairpin at my temple. "Sister's hairpin is so beautiful." She smiled faintly and continued slowly, "They say you were raised by a wandering physician and lived a humble life. How did you come to have such a fine hairpin?" "This is a relic left by my master," I said. "It's one of the few precious things I have." In my former life she had insinuated that the hairpin's origin was dishonorable. Back then, still in the mansion, she idly picked it up and toyed with it, and then carelessly let it slip. The transparent piece of Hatian jade shattered into fragments. I rushed to shove her aside and bent to gather the shards. I hadn't used any force, yet she tumbled to the ground and covered her face with a cloth, eyes reddened. "Sister, I didn't mean to." I turned and saw mother approaching. "It's only a hairpin, your sister didn't mean it. Don't make a fuss over trifles." Memory surged back. I came to myself and suddenly seized the hand she had been reaching toward my hairpin and pushed it away with force. "Those who prowl in the dark will one day meet ghosts. Don't rejoice too soon or you will only be sad." "Sister, what are you saying?" Her eyes were rimmed red, her voice choked. "I know you don't like me. You must resent me for taking the position of the official daughter of the minister." "I will leave then." I laughed coldly. "Right now there's no one else of the Chu family here, who are you putting on a show for?" I meant to leave, I had no patience for her theatrics. At that moment a low, cold voice sounded behind me. "The Chu family's eldest and youngest daughters certainly have presence." A servant pushed a wheeled chair out from behind the bushes. The man seated in it was my husband from the previous life, Ning Qi, the Prince Ping. So he had been here all along, quietly watching Chu Yuanyuan perform her act. Seeing that familiar face, vague memories began to surge. When I had first married into the Prince Ping's household, he had been indifferent to me, never showing a kind expression. I had thought it was because of his crippled leg and solitary temperament. I believed that with sincerity he would one day respond in kind. After a life wandering, I craved a home. So I tended to him with devotion, risking my life to test medicines for him and heal his injured leg. When he was ambushed by Prince Anne's men, I took the blow for him and nearly died. When he was demoted and imprisoned, I shared his hardships. At last his eyes warmed toward me. But when court turmoil erupted, he led the army against Prince Anne while I was locked away by Prince Anne's chief consort in a cold, ruinous ward. In the bitter winter I shivered and coughed blood day and night, waiting for him to come save me, but he never came. I assumed he had failed. Only when that petty eunuch mocked me with contempt did I learn he had ascended the throne 2 months earlier, and had brought Chu Yuanyuan into the harem. Across lives, he remained the same man, worshipping and kowtowing to her. Ridiculous, my life had been a farce. Longing to be loved, I should have learned to love myself instead. I clenched my fists to stifle the rising hatred. Now Chu Yuanyuan stepped beside Ning Qi and said gently, "Prince, sister has been wandering outside for many years and her etiquette is not yet complete. I beg your grace's pardon." Her face was plaintive, voice trembling as if she might burst into tears, a performance designed to make this lord pity her and despise me for ignorance of courtly manners. Ning Qi gave me a contemptuous glance. "You bullied your junior sister, disrespected me. Seize her and slap her mouth. Two maids at his side immediately moved forward to restrain me. I leaned aside to evade them, ready to strike. At that moment something black swept over my head and fell straight onto Chu Yuanyuan. A lump of sticky mud splattered all over her, filthy and revolting. Ah! She screamed in shock. From behind the hill a boy of 15 or 16 ran out. Uncle Lou. It wasn't me, really. He cried. He had delicate features and a still young face, grinning with mischief. That rotten brat Yen who ruined my kite, so I made a mud ball and threw it at him. I didn't mean to hit the servant of your lordship, I'm truly sorry. Chu Yuanyuan's expression soured to the extreme. She had never suffered such humiliation in her life. Ning Qi frowned at once. She is the second young lady of the minister's household, not a mere maid. The young boy's eyes landed on me. So you are the trueborn daughter of the Chu family. He cocked his head toward Ning Qi and smiled. She angered your uncle just now, allow me to punish her in your stead. Ning Qi's idea of punishment was to lead me to the training ground and force me to wear a peach as a living target. I cursed inwardly at the brat. Boring drills were not for me, let's make it interesting, I thought. I seized the peach and hurled it straight at the red center of the target. Flesh and juice exploded, the pit stuck dead center. His eyes lit up, so you can fight. He laughed. Having wandered the martial world with my master, I had indeed learned a few moves. The boy blinked, delighted. Then come to the Eastern Palace and play with me often. I stayed silent. He grew impatient. You must agree, today I taught that impostor a lesson for you. Was he doing this on purpose? I asked myself. He puffed up with pride. I was on the eaves, I saw that fraud plain as day. Only my two uncles favor women who pretend to be weak. Children can be blunt, sometimes they see life truer than those who have lived half a lifetime. I pondered, in my memory this royal scion was beloved by the emperor and had once been a candidate for crown prince. Only because the former heir died young and lacked court support did the succession contest fall to Prince In and Prince Ping. In rank and ability he was a more suitable choice than either of them. Now I had the chance to start again, so much could be changed. Back at the mansion Chu Yuanyuan cried a grand, earth-shaking torrent. My parents took turns berating me, we shouldn't have taken you back. You've stirred the household into chaos, better if we had no daughter like you. I listened to their curses in silence, smiling coldly within, the real chaos hadn't even begun. 2 days later father attended colleagues' banquets and stayed out all night, he was gone like that for a month. Mother grew suspicious. She questioned the servants, then personally went to the detached villa beyond the city and brought back a woman. Her name was Concubine and Lien, originally a singing girl in a theater troupe. She was barely 20, slender and beautiful in a white silk dress. Two maids forced her to her knees, a vicious slap landed across her face. This fox spirit seduced our master. Born in a pleasure house, shameless, barked Mama Zhao. Concubine and Lien bore 5 finger marks on her cheek from the blows, but she only laughed in scorn. Do you maids wish to seduce him too? Alas for Mama Zhao, the master didn't even glance her way. Concubine and Lien lifted her chin and let her gaze sweep the room, then spoke slowly to my mother. Women survive by men. Between the ladies of the inner quarters and one who comes from a pleasure house, what is the difference? Her look rested on my mother with a faint smile. If positions were reversed and Madame's family fell, sold off, perhaps you'd be worse off than me, a fox spirit now. My mother's face went stone cold. In fury she hurled a teacup to the floor, the porcelain shattered. Beat her. Beat her to death if you must. One maid shouted. Concubine and Lien shoved the maids back, cradling her belly and saying icily, I carry the master's child. Who dares touch me? My mother's eyes were knives. She swept a glance over the woman and then gave a cold, mocking laugh. Who knows where this bastard pregnancy came from, yet you dare come here to make trouble and pretend to share Chu blood. The maids surged forward to restrain Concubine and Lien, a stick raised to strike. A furious shout cut through from outside, "Stop!" It was father, wind-blown and weary, no doubt just returned from court. "Master, save me!" Concubine and Lien flung herself into his arms, wailing as if her very entrails were being torn out. In the main hall the argument, the crying, the clatter of broken porcelain rose and fell without end. It was long past nightfall before the chaos finally subsided. 3 days later, Concubine and Lien was formally taken into the household. Chu Yuan seethed with rage, grinding her teeth. That fox from the opera troupe. Pretending to be virtuous before father, she's nothing but a two-faced harlot. I leaned close, voice low enough for her ears alone. When it comes to acting, you're hardly inferior. Had you not stolen my place years ago, you might have become a famed courtesan yourself. Leaving her pale with fury, I turned away and went back to my small courtyard. At dawn, Concubine and Lien was already waiting in my room. Eldest Mississippi. She bowed deeply. In the dim morning light, I reached out to help her up. "Congratulations, Concubine N. You've achieved your wish." Our gazes met, two knowing smiles, full of unspoken meaning. The first time I met her, she had been cast out of the troupe for falling ill with fever, her beautiful face ghost pale, her eyes burning with bitterness and spite. A woman like that was born to stir the muddy waters of an inner courtyard. Her real surname was Shin, daughter of the magistrate of Wuxing. Father never knew that, during his famine relief campaign in Jiangnan years ago, he had mishandled a corruption case so poorly that countless families were destroyed. Karma always circles back. It was I who told her that father loved the Nan ballads and women of refined talent. And it was I who, when mother dragged her back to the mansion, ordered the maid to summon father home. Before she left, I reminded her, the false pregnancy medicine only holds the pulse for 2 months. You'd best prepare early. She smiled, eyes gleaming like a spirit's lure. Do not worry, my lady. Though the master is aging, I am still young. In time, I'll bring the Chu family quite the surprise. That very evening, after she drank the bean soup from the little kitchen, Concubine and suddenly doubled over in pain. Father ordered an investigation. In Mama Zhao's quarters they found powdered fuzi, a toxic herb. Furious, father expelled Mama Zhao from the house. Every maid and servant connected to her was sent away to a distant estate. Mama Zhao had been mother's dowry maid. With her gone, mother lost her right hand and was soon confined to her quarters. And I, at last, was free to leave my shabby courtyard and move about the estate as I pleased. Half a month later came the palace flower banquet. Even after one lifetime, stepping into that place again made my heart ache. Maple leaves blanketed the imperial garden, red as spilled blood. The banquet had not yet begun. Daughters of noble families lounged in the waterside pavilion. A girl in yellow waved at me. Sister, we're guessing riddles, would you like to join us? Chu Yuan laughed lightly. Perhaps you ladies don't know, my sister grew up outside and cannot read. If there's a difficult riddle, I'll answer on her behalf. I ignored her, walked to the girl in yellow, and said, lend me a brush. I drew 2 birds sharing one nest. Holding the sketch up, I asked, please, name a verse from the Book of Songs. One young lady guessed, only the magpie has a nest, yet the dove dwells within, is it not that line? I smiled. Indeed. The magpie builds the nest, the cuckoo lives in it. My eyes slid meaningfully toward Chu Yuan. Her face drained of color. Sister, this is a palace banquet, how can you speak so carelessly of family matters? Whispers spread at once among the gathered ladies. I knew then that the truth could no longer be hidden. Let the Chu family try to cover it up, I would let sunlight do the work. The eldest daughter of the Chu family, what chaos she brings, even into the imperial palace. The voice was Ning Qi's. As expected, he arrived right on cue to rescue Chu Yuan. So it's true, raised in the countryside, with not a shred of manners or grace. His tone dripped with contempt, just as it had in my last life. At his words, every curious gaze turned from Chu Yuanyuan to me. Knowing his temperament, he would soon humiliate me further. I bowed first. Your Highness Prince Ping, forgive me. Having lived among common folk, I learned their hardships firsthand. Without the farmers who grow the grain and the weavers who spin the silk, how could the nobility enjoy such abundance and finery? Specious excuses, he said coldly. I answered with calm humility, then tell me, Your Highness, are manners and education merely an ornament for display, or should they arise from the heart? If a person reads books and understands etiquette, yet has no compassion for the common people and looks down on the poor, can that be called true cultivation of manners? This place is not only filled with noble ladies. Beyond the waterside pavilion there are recent exam success scholars and debating officials discussing poetry and petitions, men who daily urge care for the people. My words easily struck a sympathetic chord with them. If Ning Qi persisted in making things difficult for me now, he would only appear petulant and unreasonable. At last he swallowed his anger and ordered his retinue to go. Chu Yuanyuan hurried after him. As the wheelchair rolled past, I heard his cold voice, next time I see you bully Yuanyuan, I will not spare you. I smiled inwardly. In my last life I was blind to the truth. I thought I could live peacefully with a man like him. On the way to the main hall for the banquet someone tapped my shoulder. I looked up, it was Ning Yuangan. Your Highness, something amusing to see. He flashed a roguish grin in the sunlight and said excitedly, come up the tree with me, you can see everything from there. He pulled me up into the branches. From our perch we could clearly see the pair down below, Chu Yuanyuan and Prince An stealing a private moment. The impostor was busy indeed, one visit to the palace to cry to Uncle Lu, now running off to dote on the fifth prince. Yet she was, undeniably, better suited to be a Chu daughter than I was. Why? I raised an eyebrow. Flattery, shameless nerve, he answered. I couldn't help laughing. It seemed this royal scion really wasn't the feeble, unfit ruler the ministers claimed. Back at the household I suffered nightmares every night. When I woke I could hardly tell if I was dead or alive. I had returned from hell with one purpose, to make those who betrayed me taste the misery I endured. But before I could strike, an unexpected variable appeared. Half a month after the flower banquet, a royal edict arrived. The Chu family's legitimate eldest daughter, Jinga, was to be made Prince Ping's consort. I knelt in the courtyard as the palace proclamation rang like a blade, my fingernails dug into my palms. In my previous life, such an edict had not come so quickly, and, more to the point, my name had not been on it. This time I had made plans. I would not let myself be substituted and married off again. Yet fate seemed to mock me. No matter how I twisted things, could I not break out of this endless loop? 2 months later the royal hunt began. The imperial family and officials attended. In past years Prince An usually prevailed. But this year a cocky brat had thumped his chest and sworn to me he would win. With such a deadly concealed weapon, don't be left behind. Ning Yuangan took the reins from his retainer and handed a horse to me. Today he was dressed in red martial garb and black armor, radiating fierce bravado. I smoothed the horse's mane and smiled. I accept the horse gifted by your highness. I would never disappoint you. Good. He clapped my shoulder with a hearty laugh. Then meet at the hunting grounds in 2 watches. He spurred his mount away with a booming laugh. I also mounted and rode southwest. But barely 5 miles later, my horse went wild, bolting like a creature gone mad. The reins cut my hands raw and still could not hold it. I realized at once someone had meddled. This was Ning Yuangan's horse. Whoever tampered with it must have meant him. I screamed for help, but there wasn't a guard in sight. The world spun and I plunged down a cliff. When I came to, I found myself lying beside a lake. Not far off, a man sat leaning against a boulder, Ning Qi. Why was he here? Our eyes met. His gaze brimmed with contempt and disgust. So eager to be married to me, were you? He sneered. Even the hunt followed me. I pressed my hand to my brow. How had I not seen before how shameless he truly was? Gritting my teeth, I rose though my body ached and sneered. A crippled leg is not the frightening thing, blindness is. You are blind in both sight and heart. What did you say? He snapped. I snorted. Not only are your eyes blind, your heart is too. How dare you insult this prince? His face flushed. He was furious enough to point and call for my mouth to be slapped. He wanted to have me punished. I laughed coldly. Too bad, it's only the two of us here. Of course he could call his covert guards to search the mountain, to keep yelling if he wished. It was likely he had been trapped too, fallen here by the same ambush. Whoever arranged this clearly meant to kill both Ning Qi and Ning Yuangan. He stared at me, cold as ice. How did you know? I was too lazy to answer, only glanced at him with disdain. After a moment of silence he cleared his throat and spoke slowly, about the Hongya monastery and the palace banquet. I did not mean to make things hard for you. Yuan is not to blame for your years wandering outside, but since you returned, every time you oppress her I must protect her. I stepped forward and struck him hard. A bright red handprint bloomed across his face. There, now that counts as oppression, I said. That slap was what I had wanted to give him in the last life. Enraged, he thundered at me, you dare strike this prince. To make you see clearly, to know who is true and who is false. To make you understand what it means to burn the bridge after crossing, to cast away the sincere for the sake of something cheap and hollow. Though I spoke to him, the words were also a requiem for the foolish me of my previous life. He clenched his jaw. Chujinga, are you not afraid that once I leave here, I'll have you killed? I sneered. If your highness has the life to leave, then by all means, try. My hand within my sleeve tightened around a concealed dart. If I struck now, I might not live to tell the tale either. Then, I flicked my wrist, the dart shot toward Ning Qi. It sliced past his ear and buried itself in the bushes behind him. A strangled cry followed, someone fell to the ground. Prince Anne's hidden guards. Fast, as always. Two more figures rushed from the trees, with the fallen one. There were 3 assassins in total. They had come to kill Ning Qi, but since I'd stumbled into their trap, they certainly wouldn't let me leave alive. With my meager self-defense skills and a wounded body, I stood no chance against them. But assassins carried things I could use. I threw my last dart at one of them. He leapt to avoid it, and in that instant, I snatched Ning Qi's sword and slashed at his waist. A fire flare rolled from his belt to the ground. I seized it and struck it against a rock. A sharp explosion cracked the night sky, a burst of signal fire rose into the air. That was the retreat signal. Upon seeing it, other assassins would withdraw at once. The Imperial Guards searching for Ning Qi would surely rush here. The 2 remaining killers saw the flare and fled into the forest without another glance. I knew of Prince Anne's signal system. In my previous life I had once escaped pursuit alongside Ning Qi himself. Soon after, the sounds of horses and shouting echoed through the mountains. Cousin Jinga. In the haze of half-consciousness, I seemed to hear Ning Yuangan's voice. I tried to move toward the Imperial Guards, but the pain from my twisted ankle made me stumble. A strong arm suddenly caught me around the waist, steady and warm. I looked up. Torchlight flared across the night, shining on the handsome young face before me, his star-bright eyes and sharp brows. Cousin Jinga, I finally found you. Ning Yuangan held the reins in one hand and helped me onto his horse, personally escorting me back to camp. He even summoned the imperial physician to tend my wounds, arranging palace maids to apply medicine. By the time everything settled, it was already late into the night. I hadn't eaten all day, hunger gnawed at me. Lying in the tent, recalling everything that had happened, exhaustion washed over me. Then the flap of the tent lifted. A delicious aroma wafted in, followed by the boy's bright, genuine smile. I knew you'd be hungry. Look, it's my catch from today. He sat beside me and opened 2 lotus leaf parcels, roasted rabbit and hu cakes. Proudly, he handed me a rabbit leg. I told you. I'm the winner this year. I took it, bit in, the savory meat melted on my tongue. Seems your highness harvested quite a victory today. He grinned, chest swelling. Of course. I also hunted a deer for grandfather, and even a leopard, and a fox. Then he blinked mischievously. When we return to the capital, wait for me. I've got a gift for you. I couldn't help but laugh. All right. 3 days later, I received a brilliant red fox pelt. The fur was thick and glossy, its fiery hue dazzlingly pure. When I draped it over my shoulders, Chu Yuanyuan's eyes nearly bled with jealousy. She forced a smile, her voice dripping with implication. Sister, you truly are blessed. First the emperor bestows you to Prince Ping, and now the crown prince's son gives you such a grand gift. I even heard that the night you fell from the cliff, it was His Highness who personally carried you back to camp. We were in the royal rest quarters, people coming and going all around. She had chosen her moment well, deliberately loud enough for courtiers and palace attendants to hear, to seed rumors that would spread like wildfire. I idly brushed my fingers over the soft fox fur and said lazily. Of course I could never compare with you, juggling between Prince An and Prince Ping all these years, gifting pastries to one and sachets to the other. Truly exhausting work. You. Her face flushed crimson, but when she caught sight of the man approaching, her voice immediately softened, tinged with a delicate sob. How could you say that, sister? Since childhood, His Highness has been weak in the legs and often bullied. I only care for him out of kindness. I know you dislike his condition and don't wish to marry him, but you shouldn't tarnish my reputation over it. By the time she took out her handkerchief and began dabbing her eyes with false tears, I already knew Ning Qi was there. I smiled faintly and murmured, the way you wail and chirp, anyone would think you're about to lay an egg. Then I turned on my heel and left. Before walking away, I added, if Prince Ping already harbors feelings for my dear sister, then please, make a decision quickly, lest you harm both others and yourself. Ever since the day I'd slapped him across the face, I had no fear of him anymore. A prince, publicly struck by a woman, his pride could not bear it. But thousands of imperial guards had witnessed me drive off assassins beneath the cliff, saving his life. If he dared repay that with vengeance, even the emperor would have difficulty defending him. Only I knew, that day, I truly had wanted to kill him. On the journey back to the capital, street children chanted a new rhyme. The false daughter of the Chu clan will follow the fate of Empress Wu. In the capital's theaters and tea houses, a new play was spreading. The first half told of 2 daughters switched at birth, later reunited with their family. The latter half, of those same sisters marrying into the imperial family, rising to power, and ruling the court together. The actors spoke without intent, but the listener, the emperor, took it to heart. Though the story was fiction, it lodged in his mind like a thorn. Half a month later, the imperial astronomer cast the omen. The legitimate daughter of the Chu family and Prince Ping are ill-fated, she is unfit to be his consort. When I heard it, I quietly exhaled in relief. Not only had the crisis been resolved, but now no daughter of the Chu family would ever marry into the royal clan again. The outcome was exactly as I'd planned before leaving the capital. Concubine and Lian gripped my hand anxiously. My lady, this move is too dangerous. Aren't you afraid His Majesty might silence you to erase the threat? I shook my head and smiled coolly. Suspicion is every emperor's sickness. But this one is indecisive and dislikes bloodshed. For the sake of court stability and public faith, he won't start a massacre without solid proof. In my past life, because of Ning Qi, I often entered the palace, dealing with consorts and servants alike. I knew the emperor's temperament well. That's why I dared to gamble this time. The play, of course, was written by me. But it spread through every stage and tea house in the capital thanks to Concubine and Lian's compositions and her old troop sisters. She smiled radiantly while brewing tea. Pity for the second young lady of the Chu family, her dream of being empress is shattered. I raised my cup and drained it. And my dear mother, I imagine she's halfway mad by now. With such a scandal shaking the household, someone was bound to lose their composure. A month later, my eldest brother Chu Yao returned from the border. The moment he entered the courtyard, he swept Chu Yuanyuan up in his arms and spun her around. 1 year apart, and my little Yuanyuan has grown so much. Brother, Yuanyuan missed you to death. In the courtyard they laughed together, sisterly affection on full display. Mother stood on the veranda, smiling fondly, eyes soft with pride. A picture of familial harmony and reunion. After some time chatting, Chu Yuanyuan's eyes welled with tears. She began to recount her sufferings in a trembling voice. I stood at a distance, watching, and couldn't help but sneer. In my past life, I'd met this elder brother only a few times, yet the memory of him was carved deep into my bones. When I was imprisoned in the cold palace, barely clinging to life, I had sent a secret letter begging him, for the sake of blood, to save me. But he came only to look at my medical record, watching me cough blood on the verge of death. He spoke gently, almost kindly. If you leave now, it will hinder Yuanyuan's ascension as empress. Chu Yuanyuan, once Prince N's consort, had later remarried Ning Qi. By moral standards, her enthronement as empress would face opposition from the ministers. And I, his lawful consort from before his ascension, if I lived, I would forever stand in her way. I clutched my chest, coughing violently, breath fading, when he sighed softly. I know you've suffered, but such is fate. The Chu family took you back, you should be grateful. Yuanyuan is our family's treasure, I cannot let her endure even the smallest grievance. Yield this once, and your brother will make it up to you someday. It was then I truly despaired, and closed my eyes for the last time. Chu Yao, in that life you escorted me to my death. In this one, I will return the favor in kind. The day after Chu Yao returned, he and mother began discussing my marriage. The man they chose was a 5th-rank military officer under his command, a widower seeking a second wife. The royal engagement being annulled has stirred the whole capital, Chu Yao said sternly at my doorway. Even Yuanyuan's name has been dragged into it. You're no longer young, and it's improper to remain in the house much longer. I invited him in, slowly brewed tea, and placed a cup before him. Smiling faintly, I said, I trust my brother's judgment implicitly. But tell me, if it's such a fine match, why not give it to Yuanyuan instead? His expression darkened. How could you compare yourself to Yuanyuan? You grew up among commoners, your reputation already tainted, and now after all that's happened. You're lucky anyone would take you at all. Don't be ungrateful. The same lofty tone, the same self-righteous reasoning, just like the words he had spoken to me in the cold palace in my previous life. I bowed my head, quietly refilled his cup, and replied with gentle submission. Mother and brother are doing this for my sake. I have no objection. I've only just returned home. Perhaps we could wait until after the new year to discuss it again. It would also be proper for me to accompany mother to Chang'an Temple and pray for the family's fortune. Seeing I had agreed, his sternness softened. After a pause, he said, very well. Stay quiet and prepare yourself for marriage. I smiled. Thank you, brother, for your concern. Before he left, I took out a small lacquered box. I heard you've been wounded on the battlefield and have trouble sleeping. This incense is made from calming herbs, it will ease your pain. He accepted it absent-mindedly. You're thoughtful. 2 days later, Chu Yuanyuan suddenly disappeared. The entire household sent guards to scour the capital, but she was nowhere to be found. As dusk fell, they dared not report it to the authorities. Not until nightfall did her personal maid return, bloodied, trembling, clutching a letter. If you wish to save Chu Yuanyuan, Chu Yao must bring Chu Jinga alone to the southern outskirts, 50 miles from the capital, to make the exchange. Mother clutched her chest and wept. Yun. My poor daughter. She stumbled toward me, grasping my hands, frantic. Jinga, your sister has lived in the inner quarters all her life, she could never have offended these ruffians. They must be after you, and she was caught up in it. Please, save her, just this once. Though I had long since stopped hoping for her affection, her thoughtless desperation still made me laugh. And if I go, I asked coolly, what do you think will happen to me? With your brother to protect you, you'll be fine. She insisted. You only need to show yourself. Please, I beg you. She bent and sobbed as though her heart were breaking. Chu Yao added gravely, Mother is right. Saving her comes first. With me there, I won't let you be harmed. I closed my eyes and sighed. How foolish I must have been in my past life, to have treated a den of wolves as family. Chu Yuan was tied up in an abandoned straw hut. To avoid alerting whoever lurked nearby, our guards stayed back, only Chu Yao and I entered. The person you want is here, he called out. Whichever hero hides in the shadows, release my sister. No one answered. Chu Yao took cautious steps forward. The hut was pitch black, his gaze fixed ahead, until a blade flashed and drove straight into his back. Who? He gasped, collapsing to one knee. I struck the fire flint, and the flickering flame illuminated my face like a ghost's. It's me, brother. His eyes widened. You. It was you. You planned all of this. I smiled faintly. You flatter me. The ones who had kidnapped Chu Yuan were secret guards of the Eastern Palace. I had merely seized the opportunity, returning a favor to Ning Yuangan. Chu Yao struggled to rise, but his limbs gave out, he fell again and again. The paralytic powder I'd mixed into his nightly incense was finally taking effect. From within the hut, I drew out paper, ink, and a memorial I had already prepared. Submit this letter of resignation, I said evenly. Surrender your command token and recommend Marquis Zhongyi as your successor. Then both you and I will leave here unharmed. The Marquis Zhongyi had served the late Crown Prince. He belonged to neither Prince In nor Prince Ping's faction. Chu Yao gave a short, scornful laugh. To eat the Emperor's grain is to be loyal to the Emperor. I've fought through 100 battles, did you truly think you could threaten me? I bent closer, the firelight glinting in my eyes. I know my brother is loyal. But the question is, loyal to which emperor? If His Majesty were to discover that you, dear brother, have been colluding with Prince In, forming factions, manipulating the military, what do you think he would believe? The flames crackled, throwing restless shadows across the thick stack of letters in my hand, each one bearing his handwriting. His face drained of color. You. How did you find out? That's impossible. I smiled faintly. You can resign voluntarily and return home, or wait for the Imperial Censorate to conduct its own investigation. Think carefully, brother. Ah, and consider our dear sister's life as well. When I returned to the Chu residence that night, blood still stained my sleeve. Both Chu Yao and Chu Yuan lay unconscious. After examining them, the physician reported, the second miss has merely fainted from fright, nothing serious. But the general, his wound has pierced the lung. It's difficult to say whether he'll survive. As the new year approached, Chu Yao still had not awoken. Meanwhile, concubine and Lian's belly had begun to swell. Whispers filled the manor, rumors that her child might be a boy. And naturally, someone could no longer sit still. In early December, my mother led the household women to Chang'an Temple for fasting and prayer. The night was bitterly cold, the wind slicing like blades. Suddenly, a scream ripped through the quiet. The sound came from concubine and Lian's meditation chamber. The Chu women and the temple nuns rushed there in panic. When the bed curtain was pulled aside, the sight froze everyone, a man and a woman entangled, their garments strewn across the floor. The abbess's voice trembled with fury. In a sacred place, how dare you commit such filth? Mother's trusted maid, Mama Yu, stepped forward and barked, "And concubine. How shameless can you be?" Then, from outside the doorway, came a soft, alluring voice, calm and composed. "Mama Yu, how can you be certain that the one inside is me?" It was concubine and Lian herself. One hand supporting her belly, she entered with grace and quiet dignity. Mama Yu's face went pale. "You, then who is inside?" "Madam!" she shrieked. The curtain was yanked open, revealing a flushed woman, her robes disheveled and hair in disarray. "My mother." From the bed, a man scrambled up, clutching his clothes, attempting to flee. The servants stood frozen, unable to catch him, yet unable to let him go. Caught in the act, except the culprit was the mistress herself. The scene was extraordinary. By the next morning, the temple was in chaos. Concubine and Lian sat in my meditation room, one hand resting on the brazier for warmth. She clicked her tongue, amused. My. The play your lady mother performed tonight, far more dramatic than any stage performance I've ever seen." I finished copying a verse of scripture, set down the brush, and said evenly, "Evil reaps its own reward. She has no one to blame but herself." The man that night had originally been arranged by my mother to ruin concubine and Lian's reputation. But I had discovered her plan early, and quietly switched the drugged rice offering. From this night on, the Chu household belonged to a new master. No matter how much they tried to suppress it, word of the scandal at Chang'an Temple swept through the capital. Mother was confined to the countryside estate. A divorce letter ended 20 years of marriage. Concubine and Lian became the new matriarch of the Chu family. Heavily pregnant, she began suffering nightmares. Father summoned a diviner, who declared, "The eldest son bears the star of misfortune. His fate cannot recover, and he is destined to clash with the unborn heir. They must not live under the same roof." Father immediately sent Chu Yao away to recuperate at a remote villa. Concubine and Lian took the opportunity to send Chu Yuan with him, to reunite the family, she said. That night, I sat alone in the ancestral hall, drinking until dawn, laughter echoing through the empty courtyard. When Prince An raised his army in rebellion, Ning Yuangan had already set ambushes at Vermilion Bird Gate. In this lifetime, without me to heal him, Ning Qi still sat in his wheelchair, unable to even step onto the battlefield. Ning Yuangan crushed the rebellion, earning great merit. With the recommendation of Marquis Zhongyi, he was named Crown Prince. When I met Ning Qi again, he had me bound and taken to Cloud Wall Tower. "So," I said coldly, "your legs are healed." His eyes darkened, step by step he approached. I journeyed to the Valley of Shadows for treatment, endured 100 poisons before the cure took. But alas, I was still one step too late. He came closer, fingertips brushing my cheek. "But now that I have you, that's enough." Something in his voice was different, heavy, sorrowful, strange. Then, in a low murmur filled with pain and longing, he said, "I know it now. You've returned too, haven't you?" My heart jolted violently. I froze, eyes wide, staring at him in disbelief. His eyes were filled with regret and sorrow, yet beneath it all, a tenderness as deep as the sea. "Do you know," he murmured hoarsely, "how I lived through the days and nights after you were gone?" At that moment, I understood, he, too, remembered our past life. "When did you regain your memories?" I asked quietly. "When I tested the poisons in the Valley of Shadows," he whispered, brushing his fingers against my cheek, his face leaning close. "In this life, without you, I was no longer fortunate. I nearly died several times just to survive." I took a steady step back. "That's because in our past life, I was the one who endured 100 poisons in your stead." "I know," he said, voice shaking. His hand tightened around mine, his breath warm against my skin. "I know it all. This time, we're both still alive, let's start over." I flung his hand away, my tone icy. Was killing me once not enough? Please, listen to me, he pleaded, desperation in his voice. When I ascended the throne, the affairs of the realm were endless. I ordered Chu Yuan to look after you. I didn't know she would. You were indeed busy, I interrupted coldly. Too busy to care whether I lived or died for 2 whole months. Yet you somehow found the time to make her your consort. Without emotion, I pushed him aside. Outside, chaos erupted, the imperial guards surrounded the tower, and Ning Yuangan arrived, imperial decree in hand. Cousin Jinga, he called softly, worry flashing across his young face before he lifted the edict high. By order of His Majesty, Prince Ping is to enter the palace at once. Fortunately, I had already warned Marquis Zhongyi of Ning Qi's private army. This time, once he entered the palace, there would be no escape. As he was escorted away, I heard his broken whisper fading behind me. When I drafted the edict to make you empress, you were already gone. I realized it far too late. His voice grew distant, carried away by the wind. But it no longer mattered. On the day concubine and Lien gave birth, my father coughed blood and died in the ancestral hall. Killed by his own fury. In the end, the Chu family had never cared for bloodlines. Whose child it is hardly matters, concubine and Lien said with a serene smile, cradling her plump, fair infant. There's no need for the old master to be so particular. At the same time, news arrived from the countryside estate. Chu Yuan, unable to endure hardship, had set fire to her own quarters in a failed escape. She survived, barely, half her face destroyed. Mother went mad, clutching her pillow day and night, sobbing for her beloved daughter. When all was settled, I began to pack my belongings. A servant from the front courtyard hurried in. Your Highness, the Crown Prince has arrived. Ning Yuangan entered quietly, his tone heavy with reluctance. Cousin Jinga, are you truly leaving? I nodded. My master has passed down the art of the divine physicians. He wishes for me to travel, to heal the sick and bring peace to the people. Once, I had lived only for revenge, bound to the past. Now, at last, I had chosen to walk forward. He hesitated, his eyes dimming. That conversation between you and Ning Qi. I heard it all. You have no secrets before me. Then he stepped forward, his tall figure casting a shadow that fell over me. I regret that I couldn't share your past, he said softly. But I wish to build a future with you. Cousin Jinga, give me a chance. His eyes were steady and sincere, brows bold, his youth radiant with resolve. I sighed faintly. Your Highness, you are still young. In time, you will experience much, meet many people. Then you will understand, there's a great distance between you and me. He was far too young to decide the course of a lifetime. And besides, to sever all ties with Ning Qi, I had already closed every path that led into the royal family. He straightened, determination blazing in his gaze. If you insist on leaving today, I won't stop you. But I will prove it to you, my heart for you is not a passing fancy. He grasped my hand, warmth radiating from his palm. I know the difference between affection and love. What I feel for you, this is not fleeting. In my previous life, I had been abandoned in the cold palace, left to starve and freeze, forgotten by all. Now, the warmth of his hand against mine seeped into my heart. I lowered my eyes, silent for a long time, unsure what to say. The day I left, spring had barely begun. The winter wind still howled, and only the crimson fox fur around my neck kept out the chill. I took the reins from my maid, bade farewell to concubine and Lien, and rode out of the capital. From the towering city gate, Ning Yuangan stood watching. Chu Jinga. His clear young voice rang out, echoing through the cold air. I will find you, no matter where you go. Mountains and rivers stretch long and far. If fate allows, one day, we will meet again. The end.